Good evening. It is late, but I have important information that I have to share with you, especially if there are any of you who are going to be trying out these experimental tools and techniques that I'm sharing to deliver a quantum jump. So that is a fast and profound shift in your reality, in your consciousness, that is aligned with your intention and what you're trying to cultivate or become or grow into. You know, I have to put a bit of a disclaimer on this because when people think about quantum jumping, if they even know what that is, they don't usually talk about the aspect of how destabilizing temporarily or disruptive temporarily a sudden change can be. So in physics, we would say it increases entropy. So quantum jumping originally, I think the term was coined from an electron jump, when it jumps from one phase to another, one dimension to another instantly, and then there's an outburst of heat. So that increase in heat is what's considered entropy. For those of you who don't understand what entropy is, it's more chaos. And you can see this in almost all of alchemy, because we would consider that alchemy. You know, once you refine the process, there's an instance where a low vibrating, let's say an electron that was at a lower level jumps up to a higher level, or lead into gold, or in the field that I work in, my mainstream job, which is psychedelic assisted treatment therapy, we follow what's called the rebus model, which any of you alchemists out there will know where the term rebus comes from, which is basically the symbol that indicates the culmination of the great work, the alchemical work, but it's spelled REBUS in the scientific journal, where it talks about what happens in the mind with regards to a quantum jump that psychedelic assisted treatment can bring, which can look like overcoming treatment-resistant depression, or treatment-resistant anxiety, or treatment-resistant PTSD. Basically, what they show is that when the psychedelic comes into the mind, the mechanisms of actions suppress the default mode network, which is a part of the prefrontal cortex that holds rigid beliefs, like top-down thinking, hierarchical beliefs about reality. So it like dampens those and puts them on pause, and it opens up the mind to a lot of sensory and memory and visual input. So that's what hallucinations is, and all the feelings. So temporarily you're like feeling so much, but when those top-down belief structures that usually are held by the default mode network are dampened, you can have an actual more direct experience of your current moment in time space in reality, like who you are now as a 40-year-old versus who you were when you were 12 and something horrible happened to you, or when you were 21 or 27, or you know what I'm saying. So you have a great sensory input of all the information that's coming in. It bumps around, your neurons fire, they change structure, that's what's neuroplasticity, and then you have a whole new perspective of life that is very strongly reinforced by that sensory information coming in from the present moment, as well as the memories and thoughts that are relevant to the present moment, and that restructures once the psychedelics influence on the brain dampens. You have new top-down, you have new hierarchical beliefs, top-down beliefs that are reinforced with what's in the present moment. Now, having said that, when you do that kind of quantum jumping, I highly recommend you do it with a traditional shaman that has been practicing for many generations, and do your research. Don't just go to some retreat in the Amazon jungle, okay, or Peru or Brazil or whatever. If you're in the Western world and doing it, and you're doing it and you want to do it as a treatment, find a therapist, psychiatrist and a integration therapist and a clinic that you can work with, and you can have pre and post treatment integration. And if you're going to do it on your own, like, I'm not recommending anyone, but there are people who know whether they can do these things on their own or not, and I'll leave that up to you. But coming back to the techniques that I'm showing you on this channel, which are not about taking substances to do the quantum jumps, you can use these techniques if you're doing it yourself before or after you take the substance. Or I'm also speaking to the mystics who have mystical experiences that just change their whole perspective of reality, which I have had. Or people who are going through significant change, like people migrating countries, going through war, the big changes like that. So what we're talking about here, and I'll explain my background a little bit later in this video, just so you can know how I can be so familiar with this information and I know what I'm talking about. So when you are consciously activating a quantum jump or a timeline jump or a great shift in your character or your psyche, there's so many different terms, but basically just you're jumping from a lower level to a higher level in an instance. You must expect that there is going to be disruption just before the jump and just after the jump, because anything that materializes in the physical realm is first being activated and generated and moving within the subtle realms, in the subtle energies. Okay, so when your timeline is about to shift, those of you who are already practicing this will already know this is very common. You can affect electronics where your computer just acts so weird, or you drain the battery of your computer, or it's pinging. There are even crazier things which I'm not going to get into that can happen, but I'm sure those of you who practice this will know. You can affect lights, they can flicker, because your electromagnetic field is getting really charged to do a jump. Other different random synchronicities or chaoses can happen around you. This is the time where you realize, ooh, I need a phase lock. I need to really bunker down on holding a certain frequency and a certain coherent field that is aligned with where I want to jump. No matter what reality is reflecting to you in that moment, you have to hold that coherence within you. And for those of you who are very new to this and don't even know what I'm talking about, how you can hold a field coherence is choose a feeling that is linked to the feeling of who you want to become, or what you want to attain or achieve, or where you want to go. And anything that brings that feeling, keep your attention on that. I create music playlists to help me with this. I listen to certain very high frequency, real, natural, raw human beings on the internet or YouTube, wherever. I do certain practices and rituals, which I talk about in my channel, that keep my energy aligned with those things. And I expect that the bigger the jump, the more contradictory things are going to come, or chaoses, or things are going to try to pull you into old stories are going to come up in that moment. And that's when I have to hold the coherence. And then when you jump, it's like incredible. And you're like, whoa, life is magical. Oh my God. Like, seriously, it's actually like magical. But this is really what reality is. Then when you land, things can be a bit destabilized. You can knock things over. Your coordination can be off. You may notice that you're tripping, falling, things are dropping, because you're kind of still electromagnetically between timelines. So things may be dropping, you may be tripping. Still hold your coherence. And in those moments, I mean, this is also what enlightenment and mastery is about. If you get reactive, say you bought this beautiful glass bowl, and then you're in the other side of the quantum jump and you're all like discoordinated and you drop it and then you're like, then you alter your frequency. You could easily go back or to another dimension. This is a very malleable place. Before it like collapses, in physics we talk about the possibility, which then collapses to the probability, which then collapses to the inevitability. So the possibility is anything is possible. And in the probability, you start collapsing a few of those timelines that are so not resonant with where you're at. And the more aligned you get with your resonance and the more certain you get with it, no matter what is reflecting externally, you collapse more and more of those probabilities that are superimposed into that moment. And then you collapse all superimposition into the outcome. And then that's the quantum jump. Anyway, sorry, I'm a bit tired because I've been doing a lot today. So back to it. So basically, you have to learn to not be reactive, and you got to learn to like manage your emotions. One of the very good tool for that is becoming the observer and realizing that you are more than the moment that is happening, and you can step back and look at yourself and go, oh, look, there's Bianca dropping something she loves and being triggered by that. And let's see how she's going to react. You can go into the observer. There's a lot of trainings to keep yourself centered, stable, and coherent. And I might go into some of those later. But you must stay into those until things normalize. And then it feels kind of like mainstream and mundane. Because reality doesn't, it's not this like dopamine high. Reality isn't like, oh, reality, and if somebody's walking around like that, then all the time, they're going to get burnt out. Like you'll get short-circuited. It's just too much input all the time. Like maybe very, very advanced masters can be in bliss all the time. But so there's a lot of energy running through you. And if you haven't cleared yourself and if everything's not flowing like your channels and all of that, you can have a bit of a burnout. So usually what I notice with people is that they go into that awe state. They generate the coherence, especially with the quantum jumping. And then when you come into reality, it's kind of like chop wood, carry water. And you're like, oh, what happened? I was just in this like euphoric bliss of like changing timelines and doing things I never thought I could do and being something I never thought I could be and getting what I never thought I could get. And now everything feels very like plateau. The plateau is really important because that means that it's all collapsing and it's solidifying and you're going into just like a steady consistency. And in the plateau, that's a time when you really rest and you still keep your attention on things that are resonant with what you want to bring in. I cannot tell you how many times I have told friends and ex-partners and, clients that what you consume with your intention is what you generate. So if you're looking at like horrific things all the time or tragedies or trash TV where people are stabbing each other in the back and betraying each other and just like objectifying each other, you're growing that in your reality. It's so important what you consume, what you put your attention on. So those of you who have realized that you are transmitters and receivers and you have the ability to change timelines and quantum jump, it's so important to choose content and choose music and choose anything that you put your attention on that you have chosen consciously to reflect what you want to resonate at. Crystals are amazing to do that, especially if you're working with crystals and light. I've talked about working with the elements. Those are incredible things to put your attention on. Earth, fire, air, wind, water. We can also go into metal and wood. But those are not quite traditions that I follow, but I do understand them. I mean, I sometimes follow some of their pathways. And now, one of the things that I really need to emphasize for you to hold a quantum jump that you have done to lock in that reality, you have to do some form of review. In most of the esoteric traditions, whether you're studying remote viewing or astral traveling or creating a rainbow body, those kind of traditions is what I'm talking about. They talk about a practice where before bed, you review your whole day from the moment backwards in time throughout the whole day. Now, I have to admit that I haven't been so great at doing that because I'm usually doing some other practices before bed. But I recently came across another quantum jumper who, I can't remember her name right now, but she talks about a magic book. She's coined this term, a magic book, where she wakes up in the morning. She was struggling with serious depression, anxiety, and then she does the review, which is a very ancient occult practice that's usually done at night, but in the morning, really early in the morning. So she wakes up super early, like 5-ish, and then she goes to a coffee shop. She puts on the music that has the frequency that she wants, and then she reviews what she was really grateful for the day before. Now, that's going to lock her frequency. If you want to work with time bending, you want to go through all the events backwards in time, but that's another form of it that you can do that's manageable, and that probably I want to do because I've worked a bit with time bending, but it's not really my interest at the moment. When it is, I might do the full proper practice. So I'm just watching the time because I don't like my messages to go longer than 20 minutes, which is the usual time for contemplation or meditation that they suggest in most traditions. So I'll try to wrap it up. But to solidify what you have achieved in your quantum jump, because we are in a bit of a malleable time, which I've mentioned to a few clients collectively, because the earth is jumping, is what quantum jumping is. Also the whole new earth principle, which a lot of people were prophesizing or talking about before. We haven't quite locked into the new earth, So you want to do a review, and you can do that where you wake up in the morning and you set the tone and then you write what you were grateful for the day before. Or you can do it the night before, like the ancient traditions do, which is slightly more masculine vibe, and the review in the morning for gratitude is more feminine vibe. It depends what you're trying to cultivate within yourself. Do you need a balance by increasing your feminine or your masculine? But anything that you do, the very, 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 very first step is to learn how to stabilize your frequency and stabilize your field as a sovereign, free will human being. Because I'm not talking to slaves or indoctrinated programmed people here. Then they won't even find this channel. I don't expect to have a big following. But those who are choosing to be sovereigns, who want to create their own reality and have started to realize that they can influence the environment and that they are electromagnetic emanators, stabilize your field. Choose the frequency that you want to harmonize with or that you want to align with, and then constantly do things to align yourself. I have a few things that I align with. I align with beauty because that is a secondary output of divinity. And now, I'm talking about actual beauty. I'm not talking about the whole sex power game thing that they do in advertising and marketing. Beauty, harmony, a return to innocence, and peace. Those are the things that I coherently come into alignment with, because you don't always know what to come into alignment with when you're feeling chaotic and disruptive. So you got to sort of sort it out before, when you have some real clarity, clear thinking time, so you can just put your attention there. And then once you've got your field coherent, then you can start working on, because you still have to do work, and you have to be dedicated and disciplined to achieve anything in life. I mean, I have gotten to a point where I work so hard on my field coherence that I don't actually have to work within too many mainstream systems to sustain myself. But I do keep going back in and diving in, and I'm trying to create a clinic within a mainstream system because I think it's really important to inject high quantum frequency into those systems, because I can't enjoy my life if the world is falling apart. So, whatever I'm doing, I'm injecting back into the systems so that there can be more coherence, more beauty, more peace, more harmony, more of a playful return to innocence. So, very first step is get yourself coherent. Find a ritual that's super easy for you. Whether it's listening to music or watching certain people on YouTube or gardening or painting or rapping or humming. I do a lot of toning, humming, vibrational stuff to shift my frequency. It's part of my natural way of being, like certain kinds of breathing. Do those, then you'll be able to maintain your quantum jumps. Very, very, very important. So I put that disclaimer in the intro of my YouTube for anyone who's genuinely interested. I've shared some very minor examples. I'll see what more I may share as we go down the line. But yeah, really, this kind of information, as I said, is only for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. If you're not resonant, this will sound like gobbledygook. I'll be an interesting character that you're curious by, but you will have no idea what I'm talking about. And you won't know how to practice it. If you're already, it's already happening to you, this will make complete sense. And you'll know what I'm talking about, and it can be helpful. So yeah, if you have found this and you have friends who are experimenting with this because it's a new thing it's awakening in people, then I welcome any questions, because I've been doing this for some time. Oh yes, I said I'd give you a bit of my background. So when I was a child at 9 years old, I had a dream about a entity that emitted a certain frequency. It wasn't a good entity. So I had to learn how to do sort of like clearings or exorcisms, and then I became known for it, and I would be asked to come to people's houses to clear negative energies or demons and such. But really what I understood is it was frequency. Soon after that, I developed what's called petit mal, a mild form of epilepsy, where I would my body would be here, but I would be gone. I wouldn't collapse. I wouldn't have seizures. I wouldn't hear words that teacher would say. I would think the light would go blank. And then when they put me on an EEG machine, they found out that my brain activity was super high, super active. And so then they put me on this like medication from 9 to 13 called Epilim, which dulled me. So I kind of got dulled for that time. But what I experienced with that, what they called epilepsy, was that I would go to another dimension. I completely somehow stabilized where I didn't fall here, but I was somewhere else. So I learned that. And then part of my life story was that I'm a multinational. So I have multiple nationalities because I've had to move a lot, continent-wise, due to circumstances. I'm not sure if you can hear my accent. I was born in South Africa, and I had to leave because it was not safe. My parents are from Warsaw, and went through some serious trauma. My dad's in his late 80s, so he was there for World War II, and then the communists, and then they escaped. And then we went to America, and it was not the most high frequency existence where we ended up in America. And then I just had to get out of here, and I just did whatever I could. And I, through a series of unbelievable support and help out of nowhere, I managed to come to Australia and get work, and then get a citizenship through working for companies. So I've worked in the mainstream. So I've moved continents quite a few times, and then a few years ago, I wasn't sure which country I should live in. So I stayed, between 6 months to almost 2 years in different countries, different continents. I have moved around a lot. And let me tell you, at my age, I'm in my 40s. Change, it's much easier when you're younger. You have to develop a certain malleability and adaptability, and I move a lot. I'm sort of a wandering nomadic hermit. But I meet incredible people along the way, which we stay connected and we visit each other. So I'm not like antisocial. But I've experienced a lot of change. Then I have a very, my psyche, my consciousness has been able to shift dimensions a lot with whatever they diagnosed me as. And I do practice the mystical arts, many different traditions. So I've experimented as well. I've worked for almost 2 decades as a healer and a channel and a reader. And I've also worked almost a decade in the mental health industry as a registered clinician. So, and I do definitely believe in high fidelity when you're using a modality or a tradition or a clinical practice, that you keep it to that. And yes, you can see what elements of the different traditions flow in, but you do it respectfully in the language that you're working. So I'm able to work in those different fields. But I'm taking a break from working in the more traditional mainstream fields now to share this information because it's been extremely useful for me. I am a solo person here in a country that I didn't grow up in, with no family, and I have to completely figure out my life on my own and support myself. So I, as you can see, I'm a different kind of person, that I gravitate more to like being in meditation all day and not dealing with all the hoops that you have to jump through to like have a mortgage and to own property and repair things and to get licensed and registered and certified, and taxes and international taxes, and oh my God. But I managed to do it through quantum jumping, through resonance field, through frequency tools that I use. And I managed to do things that no one thought I was ever capable of doing. I'm living proof. I always used to get told, Bianca, you're never going to survive in this world. You're never going to survive in this world. Well, I'm thriving, and so I figured out how. And so if you're interested, if you're a bit different like me, or if you just want to elevate your reality or elevate the collective reality for the earth, I'm so into supporting that. So this went a bit longer than expected, but yeah, I just thought I should share my background. But the point is, step 1, before I share any of the more advanced tools, if I do share them here, even the ones that I have shared, if you really can hear what I'm saying or see what I'm giving, step 1 is learn to get your field coherent, get your frequency resonant with something that is expansive and elevated and aligned with the goal and outcome of who you want to be, and then start practicing these tools. And remember, there's going to be lulls, and then there's going to be periods of discombobulation, periods of disruption, periods of distortion, because you're working with lots of change in an already globally changing atmosphere. There's so many dimensions active on planet Earth right now. I'm like, whoa, because there used to be like certain set dimensions that had concretized into the physical, and now there's quite a few. So it seems chaotic. So more than ever, it's important to stay resonant and coherent. And really, it's quite a wonderful experience learning to be coherent and aligned in this shifting, changing world. It's beautiful. I encourage it. It's sometimes even better in a more wholesome way than the experience of quantum jumping. So enjoy. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments. And see you on the flip side. And I just want to give thanks to my teams that I work with, which are the Elohim, which are the Arcturians, and which are the Pleiadians, my higher self, and all the other ancestors and land spirits and ancestors of this land that work with me. I'm deeply grateful to be seen and to be collaborated with and to be given information and to be able to receive it. So, in Lakesh, Alakin.